What is going on? Welcome back to the Jiu-Jitsu Outlet Podcast. I am sitting down with the man, Scott Pelzel from Scotty P Breakdowns on YouTube. Man, we were just talking before the show. You've become one of my favorite YouTubers. Like, I absolutely love your breakdowns, some very high level stuff, breaking down ADCC, breaking down these more high level tournaments. And I know you're also a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. You train at the Dark Side in Houston, Texas. And man, I just want to hear, just kind of start off on your channel. You talk a lot about the technical side. Like it's a very technical YouTube channel, but I don't know a whole lot about you personally. And I just want to hear, what has martial arts done for you ever since you started training? Like who were you before you started? And, where do you feel you are today?
Yeah, I used to watch the UFCs with my stepdad. Um, Growing up, he would get all the movies, all the DVDs. As soon as they got released, he would go and get them, and then we'd all watch them. And every fight, we would sit around as a family and watch it. And he was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu as well. His dad was a Navy SEAL, and so got him into jiu-jitsu like way back in the day. And he got his brown belt before he finally quit training. And so he had known a lot, and he would, we would always like, wrestle around and stuff like that. But once I was 17 and I got out of high school, I went straight into the Marine Corps, where I just so happened to be part of a unit where grappling was a thing, where we would do like Wednesday fight days for training. And I just happened to like have a knack for it because I would just casually practice triangles every now and then with my stepdad growing up. So I would win, pretty regularly in the Marine Corps. And I deployed in 2000 and I want to say 19. No. 2011, I deployed. I did a Westpac, and I just so happened to meet someone who was a recon Marine, and he was a white belt in jiu-jitsu, but he was actually really good. And he would just show us stuff on our training sessions. And so I started by literally practicing every day with another white belt. And, that's how I started. And when I got back, I did my first tournament and I got second, and it just like clicked in my brain that this could be something I could do. But I was actually had a knack for. So I started from there, man, all the way back in 2011. And yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's awesome, man. And sounds like you met one of those white belts who is in quotation marks, like a special forces operator who's done jujitsu is not actually a freaking white belt. But I've met a lot of those guys too. And dude, thanks for your service. Yeah. I didn't know you were in the Marine Corps. I was in the Army for a while, and I never deployed, so I'm not as big of a badass as you. But dude, that's amazing. And I got into it too when I was in the military. And one of my first training partners was a guy who was a blue belt who was also, trained, and we met in the military. And dude, it's a lot of scraps. It's a lot of like not very technical roles, people just throwing the fuck down. And I guess I just wanted to kind of ask about this, like dive into it a little bit more. What do you feel that kind of training did for your mental health, especially when you were deployed? Like how did you, I guess, use this for your mental development?
Oh, well, when I was deployed, man, it was like a lifesaver, dude. I would look forward to it, being away from home, and, you're being put through the most stress you've ever been through. And, it really takes its toll on you, especially as the days start to count up. You're out there for 3 months, and you're not even halfway yet. And you're just like, super miserable. But that, getting to get on the mats and learn something, that I really like to do was like, man, every day I was like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do this. And I had a rival too, in my unit, and he was a wrestler in high school. So he was just naturally like really good at grappling. And we'd always have like just like these wars. And so it's just like, man, it gave me something to really focus my mind on, to like, I was just so young. So really dealing with deployment was just really hard for me. Obviously some people, they're a little older, or maybe they have more experience with those types of things. So maybe it doesn't affect them as much. But for me, it was like every day was tough. And so to have something that I could do and look forward to and actually have like a mission. So my mission was to beat my rival. I was like, man, I don't understand how he keeps beating me. And so I would literally show up every day to they had wrestling practice, they had jiu-jitsu practice, and I would go to both of them. and just beat my body up trying to figure something out. And it honestly helped my military career as a whole. So it was like, here's something that I'm excited to do. I'm getting a workout in, and the better I get at this, it's seemingly transferring to other places of my life in the military. So it was a huge saver for me for sure.
What other areas do you feel it helped you? Like, how did it help you in the military career, kind of outside of just the basic, stress relief and stuff like that?
Well, it showed me that if you apply your mind to something, you can figure it out. There's a lot of times where you're put face to face with a situation, you're not exactly sure how to handle it. And when you experience that in jiu-jitsu and you realize that you just have to keep drilling the technique, not once, not a couple times, it's like, why don't you drill that technique 100 times or 1,000 times, and then you can retry it out. And almost always, if you do a technique 1,000 times, all of a sudden you're going to start landing it in a live roll. And so that helped me apply the same method to other aspects, where it was dealing with someone who was in charge of me, who was probably didn't like me, or maybe I felt like they're treating me a different way. I could just realize, like, hey, there's a way to deal with this situation. I just got to get the reps in, like deal with this person as if it's an obstacle, and constantly do what you have, what you have to do to figure that person out so that you can stay out of their way or not get into trouble as much. Or, there's like, you're judged in the military based on a bunch of different things, whether it's, completing those courses. Ours were called MCIs is what they were called, but they're like extra courses that give you points, or, you get fitness tests. We get, knowledge tests, even within like your productivity of your, what we call our MOS. They call y'all's MOSs too, right? Like jobs.
Yeah. MOS.
Right. And just being able to apply the same thing. So it's like I had some success in grappling, and I realized the reason I was good was because I was always doing it. So I was like, man, okay, so if I can do my 1,000 reps on this gear, on this comm gear that I'm trying to learn how to work, I can also figure it out. Maybe it's confusing to me right now, but if I just keep messing with this thing, if I keep working on it, then just like in jiu-jitsu, I'll be able to make it work when it counts. And just like, another thing is like, people always struggle with, maybe moving forward in their career or whatever. But something I learned is one of the easiest ways to get better is to read books. And I kind of got that same motivation to read from doing martial arts. Is like, when you go against somebody in martial arts that also reads martial arts books, you're like, damn, I should be reading martial arts books too. And so I would read, military books that would really help, set in the military mindset so that I could figure out, these things that I got to be doing if I wanted to set myself apart.
Man, that's some game-changing advice. I feel like you just laid out a blueprint that someone could use to succeed with just about anything, like this sort of mindset of being able to solve problems. Like something that I wrote down that you said was, if you apply your mind to something, you can figure it out. Like that is so freaking true, man. Like you can do literally anything that you set your mind to. It's something like, for example, I feel like jiu-jitsu gave me the confidence and the ability that if I wanted to, I could go become a professional musician, but I don't want to. I would rather spend my time doing jiu-jitsu. But it showed me that, like, if I put the time into it, I could master it. I could become a professional, whatever. I could become a pro figure skater if I wanted to. It would just be a matter of putting my mind to it, putting in the reps, and believing that I can, seeing that it's possible, seeing that, you can go from being that white belt who's constantly getting their face smashed in to becoming the brown belt or the black belt who's doing the face smashing. And it's a great thing to experience as a person. And I just wanted to ask you one question based off what you said. What's your favorite martial arts book? Like, what are some that you felt really impacted you in your journey?
Man, I would say one of the number one books that have affected me would be Chop Wood, Carry Water. Man, it's a book about archery, but it's a lot like, any art, you could say archery is a martial art. It's just with a weapon, but the whole book is about the samurai way and, the samurai archer way. and just like how you got to be a master of the fundamentals before you can do, you know, everyone wants to be the badass archer that can hit something from 50 feet away, but what it takes to get there, no one wants to do, which is shooting an arrow from, you know, 5 feet away from the target first for years before you're allowed to move back. And they would have to chop wood, carry water every single day before they even started training. So it's like, you don't even get to practice archery when you feel your best. You only get to practice archery after you've already chopped wood and carried water all the way from this river that's like miles away. And then you start your archery training when you almost have nothing left. And every day would begin with that until it was like such an easy load for you. Then you could transfer that skill to the archery. But it took years to get there. And it just goes over like how many times you know, the main character of the book is like struggling with just the monotony of it, or how difficult everything was. But it just like all culminates to like, you know, it's not where he got in 5 years, but he was like, it's like shows the journey of 10 years or 20 years or 30 or 40 years. And like the process of doing the hard fundamentals every single day. And man, that one really struck home for me. You know, because so many people want the fancy stuff, man. They want the kiss of the dragon jiu-jitsu move, or, you know, they want to learn high kicks. But, you know, if you really want to be good at striking, it's 500 jabs and 500 crosses on a bag, you know, that no one wants to do that stuff. And if you want to be good at jiu-jitsu, it's, you know, nonstop butterfly sweeps up and down the mat every single day. So I would say that's my number one book. And I'm currently going through the Book of the Five Rings right now by Musashi.
Man, that book, the Book of Five Rings, I've got something to say on that in just a second. But to go back to chop wood, carry water, I haven't read that, but it's been on my list, and I think you just elevated it on my list, because our head coach James Krause, he's a former UFC fighter, now a UFC coach. He's the freaking man, but he's big on that book. I know it's one of his favorites. He has it on like some shirts that you can get from his academy. Just says, you know, chop wood, carry water. It's got a picture of an axe and a bucket. So I see a lot of glory guys repping that shirt. So I'm gonna have to read this book for sure. I know head coach is big on it. You're big on it. But yeah, the Book of Five Rings, that's one I'm actually getting ready to do a deep dive on with my buddy Ryan. We're going to do a podcast episode just on that book, because there's so much to discuss. Like that's a whole episode just in of itself. But it's powerful, man. One of the biggest things he says in that applies is like, says that the way that you do one thing is the way you do everything. And that is so true, man. Like the way that you practice martial arts is the way that you're going to run your business or hang out with your friends, or that's how you're going to show up in your relationships. And for me, like that was a big inspiration just behind this whole show, is the Book of Five Rings. So yeah, what are you taking away from it? Like, I know you said you're just working through it, but like, what have been some of your big aha moments already?
Well, I really like that you said the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything. Me and my coach were literally talking about that this morning. But I would say the biggest thing I'm really like focused on right now that's sticking out to me in the book is strategy. And something that I learned, that I realized doing jiu-jitsu, is that the technique has to come naturally before you can even work on strategy. You can't work on strategy if you're not already like a master at your technique, because it has to be second nature, the technique. If you're thinking through the techniques when you're rolling, you're not really going to be able to apply strategy. Your mind is too crowded with the techniques. But if you're at a level where you already have like several techniques or funnels already, you know, in your repertoire, and then you add in like specific strategies, and the book is all about the strategies, right? So it like breaks down like certain ones. And when you're able to apply the techniques at a moment's notice, and you're thinking more about strategy and setting them up in the role, it's just like on another level. It's like, you know, legitimately 3D chess, where we're moving pieces, but the pieces are just one aspect of it. We're like trying to trick each other in the midst of just moving these pieces. So that's really what I'm working on now. And I realized how much I don't think about technique. When I read this book, I was like, man, sometimes I just do strategy just naturally, but I haven't really put like deep thought into strategy on all my funnels and, like how I like push people to certain ways or, what have you. So that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately.
I love that, man. And that's huge what you said, that you have to have a certain level of expertise before the strategy is even going to make sense. It's kind of like in business, like for example, if you've ever done a lot of sales calls, like an outbound sales strategy where you're doing a lot of cold calls, like that's a strategy, the strategy of, hey, we're going to do a ton of cold calls. Like but if you don't have any sales skills, if you've never developed your skill as a salesperson, your strategy is going to fall flat on its face, even though it might be the greatest idea for your business. Doing cold calls might be the right move, but if you suck at sales, it's not going to work. So it's kind of like that same mentality of like, if you haven't, or going back to the Marine Corps example, if you haven't repped 1,000 times setting up your communication equipment, no way in hell you're going to be able to do that when shit hits the fan and you're being fired upon. There's just no way. It's going to go out the wazoo. So even though having communications equipment is a strategy, right? Like to have that certain equipment, like there's a strategic reason behind that, but you're never going to be able to employ the strategy if the operator hasn't drilled 1,000 times. So it's almost like you're saying strategy and technique need to hold hands.
Oh, 100%,
Man.
And, you got to put in the groundwork and the technique so that your strategy can really shine.
Man, that's beautiful. I feel like we could spend the whole episode just talking about this one concept, but there's so much, man. But I do want to transition into this. Lately on your channel, you've been doing a lot of breaking down kind of striking versus grappling. And I remember on one of your episodes, you did a showdown with someone in your gym where you had an MMA fight with them. And you mentioned that you used to train MMA, but you're not doing it so much anymore because of the risk of the concussion. And man, I totally agree. I had a major concussion about 2 years ago. Was non-training related. It was just an accident. I actually hit my head on the bathtub going to the bathroom in the middle of the night and almost died. And man, made me realize that I don't want to get concussions very lightly, but I want to hear and I want to be devil's advocate a little, because obviously someone who's into striking will be like, oh man, you got to know striking. So let me get your take on this. Like if someone is kind of between, what am I going to sign up for, striking or grappling? What would you say to this person?
All right, so they're in between, and okay, let me get a follow-up question. Are they doing it for self-defense or yeah, what are they doing it for?
That's a great question. This is a whole nother conversation. I think most people start off training martial arts for self-defense. I'd say like majority of people that I meet, that's why they're doing it. Very few people are like, oh, I want to compete. Most people are like, oh, self-defense. So let's say self-defense.
Right. I would say grappling 100% for self-defense. And I used to teach striking. I was a boxing instructor. I used to teach combatives in the military. That's what I did for the longest time. I was a Marine Corps martial arts instructor trainer. And my thought process on that is, if you have boxing training, anyone can throw a punch. Anyone can, if you zig when you should have zagged, you can get hit. But in grappling, that person isn't going to know anything of what to do. I'm going to put them on the ground, and the only thing they can think about is standing up. And when they stand up, I'm going to be on their back choking. So there is nothing that you can do when someone knows what they're doing in grappling. You just look silly. So 100% grappling, my opinion is that grappling is a better art to do if you're looking for pure self-defense. Like if you're really in a situation where you want to protect yourself, you don't want to start like putting your hands up and bobbing and weaving, like, or throwing jabs. Like grab the person, put them on the ground, and then get the hell out of there. Or they're closing the distance on you, man, you raise your hand and you grab them. I mean, that's what I think on the whole situation. As far as self-defense, grappling is the way smarter option.
Totally, man. And something I want to highlight too is you don't want to necessarily fuck someone up if you're in a street fight, because when the police show up, they're going to look at who took more damage. And yeah, if the other guy jumped you and he tried to mug you or something, but you almost killed him because you broke his jaw in half with your front kick, the police are going to have some questions for you. They're not just going to be like, oh yeah, we'll arrest this guy and see you later, man, have a good day. Like, no, like they're probably going to arrest you. You know what I'm saying? They're probably going to take you both in and be like, hey man, like you got some questions to answer here. This guy almost died, especially if he actually dies. Like if you give him a severe enough concussion that he actually dies, like you're better have a good lawyer. So that's the other thing that I try to tell people when they're signing up for this. It's like grappling, if I put someone to sleep, they're fine within 30 seconds. It's fine. They've no mark on their body. They're totally fine. They might be having a nice little nap, which gives you just enough time. I was a military police officer. We're taught, hey, put the person to sleep and then handcuff him, and then when he wakes up, he's in the back of the police car. Like, you don't want to break this guy's leg, break this guy's arm, or put him to sleep with a front kick. It's just what's been your experience with this? Like, have you ever had anything where someone got really fucked up and then the defender got in trouble?
Well, I would say that the number one thing that I see is people knock someone out and then that person hits their head on the concrete. Like, so that's the number one thing is like, dude, if you knock someone out, there's so many people who get way more fucked up from hitting the concrete afterwards. And that's like the scariest thing that can happen, because even if, you don't even hit them that hard, people will just fall down and then hurt themselves like 10x more just from the fall. So that's like one of the number one things. That's like, yo, if you're really gonna, use your self-defense or you get into a fight, I'd much rather put the person on the ground the way that I wanted to. All the time I pick guys up and I just set them down all the time. And again, with the whole like throwing strikes thing is like, dude, you're any person that gets into a tussle with me, and I've been a bouncer, I've been in bar fights, ones that I didn't want to be in, but they happen. And every time, as soon as you grab someone and you like one, they don't know what to do. Like I had this one dude like go to grab my forearm, so I told him he needs to leave. And he grabs my forearm. I just like, without even thinking, I just flipped him out. I had his arm behind his back and he was on the bar. And he was just like, yo, man, I don't want any problems. I don't want any problems. And it's like that's what you want. You want to grab somebody and then they just like, hey, I don't want any problems. I don't want to have to hit somebody, because if I hit somebody, the escalation is just gonna go through the roof.
Yeah, man. They might have a knife. I mean, look at freaking Leandro Lowe. He got in that bar fight and it sounds like he was being nice to the guy. Like it sounds like he let him back up and then the guy shoots him in the face. So it's like you don't want to mess with people, just as a standard rule, even if you do have grappling. You know, something else, man. It's like just this idea of being able to keep the person safe. One of my first martial arts instructors, he said, the beginner student is able to defend themselves. If you're a beginner, you should be able to take care of yourself. If you're more advanced, you should be able to take care of yourself and the people around you. If you're an expert, though, you should also be able to take care of the attacker, and you should make sure that literally no one gets hurt. It's like that's the level of skill you need to be at, where even the attacker, who's an idiot, who's probably drunk, made a mistake, picked a fight with the wrong guy, like that guy, you don't have to end this guy's life. Like that's not going to work out well for anyone. So I feel like grappling teaches that. I feel like it keeps everyone safe, even the idiot who started the fight.
For sure. 100%.
Man, I just wanted to touch on one more thing because we do got to wrap this up here in a minute. I know that you spend a lot of time training people at the dark side in Houston. I know you've probably worked with a lot of beginners. You said you're fresh off the mats from this morning. What do you see happen with someone coming in these days, signing up for jiu-jitsu? What do you see that person's mental evolution like these days? Like, taking someone who's a white belt and getting them up to maybe a blue belt or even a purple belt. What sort of development do you see these individuals go through?
Yeah, I'm actually trained, a couple guys that are under my wing right now, and I've like personally taken them through, watched them grow from white to blue. And I would say, one of the major things that I see is you know, at first they're like caught up in like getting all the different submissions. You know, almost every time they're telling like, oh, I got to work on this, or I need to get more of these submissions, or I need to get more of those submissions. And then when we go to compete, what really shines through is the hip escapes, or the being rolled over from top side control, you know, just like the really silly fundamentals that really open up the submission. So, you know, it's funny, like, you know, their mindset is, they want to learn more darce chokes, or they want to learn more, need to get more effective at triangle chokes. They really want to they're not getting the finishes they want on the leg locks. And then when we go to compete, what really shines through is just like, yeah, man, when you get on top side control, dude, you're burying your arm underneath their back, and people are rolling you really easy because you're holding them too tight. You got to have a wide elbow so that you have some sort of base, and you got to learn to extend your legs out so you become a long plank instead of a tight ball because you're holding on to them so tight. Or they get in bottom side control and then they're stuck there. And it's like, yeah, dude, you got to hip escape, and not just once, but you need to be hip escaping like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I should never see your butt stop moving if you were on bottom. You know, and just little things like that, or like they get caught in a leg lock and they're hanging out there and they end up getting leg locked. And it's like, we have this mindset that, we're usually the better leg lockers in the scramble. But I had to tell my buddy, is like, look, dude, if you're in one, get out, clear your knee all the way before we decide to re-attack or come up with something. You know, so just like those small fundamentals on the weird position, on the, well, no, I wouldn't say weird positions, but the obvious positions, right? Bottom side control, top side control, fully escaping out of a leg lock before we try to mount an offense, stuff like that.
So a radical attention to detail is kind of what you're talking about, being radically attentive to the fundamentals, the principles. That's something I've noticed with a lot of high level entrepreneurs that I've gotten to work with throughout my career. It's like, good luck screwing up some detail around them. Or when I was in the military, I mean, as well as I do, when you're briefing your superior officer, if your freaking fonts are out of alignment, if you have, on one side, you have size 20 fonts, and then on the next slide, you've got size 16 font, the colonel is going to see that. And he's going to be like, hey, man, your slide's fucked up. Like, what's up with this? Like these are things that would happen to me. Like, and I would always think back then, I'd be like, oh man, this guy's an asshole. He's a jerk. But no, now I realize he's so attentive to the detail that he can't help but call it out. When he sees something fucked up, he's like, hey, it's just in my character. Like, you're not getting that one by me, even if I don't like your font size. He's going to let you know. And I try to carry this over now. I'm getting ready to open up a martial arts academy here in my hometown. I'm gonna have to be on these guys. I'm not gonna if I let the details slide, then that's the standard, right? Like, that's the standard at my academy, because that's what I allow. And man, how do you approach this, like, as an instructor? Like, is there anything that you do to really, like, stay focused on this one thing?
I would say that the number one way to do it is to keep competing, because that will let you know where your fundamentals are lacking. So, it's hard to see the fundamentals when you're training in practice all the time. And, the reason the white belt or the whites or the new blues, when you've been training for a while, these things start to become apparent, or their minds, they're like, oh, I want more of these chokes, or they want to work on more submissions, and I see the same thing in business too, is that you've already been doing it for maybe a year, 2 years, and you're already getting subs, and now you're starting to notice how many times you're missing submissions. And so your mind can be dragged just into the wrong areas, just because that's what you're doing when you're training, right? You made it to blue belt, you have a lot of white belts that you're beating up on, right? And the timing is just not the same in practice, right? Everything is way different when you go to compete, because people are going to squeeze you as hard as they can, and they're going to move as fast as they can. So it's just different when you're training in the practice room than on a competition mat. And so the only way you can really be aware of what you're missing is to do the competitions. And I noticed that I started my own business where I sell crystals, and I noticed that the best reps that I can do is go out and do these markets and have my own booth table. And it's like just a dry run and seeing what people like, what they don't like, the placement of my items, what people are paying attention to. Like, all my ideas are awesome when I'm thinking about them and I'm in, and I'm in my workstation, like coming up with them. Oh, people love this. People are going to love that. But I really won't know until I go to the market and I see the customers and they tell me what they like. So,
Bro, I didn't know you sold crystals. We could talk about this a lot too. I'm a crystal nerd, man. I have so many rocks and crystals. Oh man. Zoom is gonna kick us
awesome.
out though here in 6 minutes. So I don't know if we can talk crystals
Okay.
for another hour. But dude, I just wanted to
Yeah,
talk
bro.
a little bit and just hear like anything you got going on, or is there anything you want to promote before we wrap this up? I'm gonna put the links down to your YouTube channel in the show notes. So if you're listening, go check out Scotty P Breakdowns on YouTube. But Scott, just let us know, where can people find you? Anything you got going on, bro?
Yeah, man. No, I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, scottyp.bjj or scottyp.breakdown. I got, two Instagrams. One's for, I do share like some of the stuff that I do, but also like if you want to know that I do archery or my military life or any of those other things, you can follow that page or my breakdown where I just do the strictly all the short breakdowns. I'm on YouTube and I'm growing on there. That's probably like my most the platform I'm really pushing on. So if any of you guys want to go in there and leave, let me know what you think on some of the videos or what you would like to see, and I'll definitely cover it. And yeah, I'm also on TikTok if you guys want to follow me, Scotty P Breakdown. But the main things I got going on now, so I just shot a bunch of footage in Austin, and my main thing right now is to just, I'm gonna go back to breaking down some of the ADCC stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how is the best way to do it, and I don't want to do too much of like just going over on other people's content, but I still want to do where I'm breaking down the best guys. But I've shifted a lot of my focus to breaking down my own matches. So I just got back from Austin, and I trained at 10th Planet Austin, and I trained at the B team, and I got a bunch of footage, so I'll be releasing that all this week.
Dude, I'm so pumped for that. That's amazing because I'm always binging on the B team channel as well, and I'm always binging on yours. So I'm excited for that
Yeah,
showdown, man. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I got J-Rod breaks off me for 10 minutes. So lots of footage. I got footage with J-Rod. I got footage with Damien. So it's gonna be good.
Dude, that's badass. I've been wanting to get down there and roll with those guys. But man, that's amazing.
What are you
And
at?
I'm in it's funny, I'm actually also in Houston, but I'm in Houston, Missouri.
Oh shit.
But different Houston, but I'm about like 10 hours north from you, man. But hey, I'm gonna
Gotcha.
throw all the links to check you out down below. And if you're listening to this, go subscribe to Scotty P Breakdowns and get your learn on because it's badass. So thank you, bro.
Can I say one more thing about the thank you. Can I say one more thing about the boxing and the grappling thing?
Yeah, of course. Although Zoom is gonna kick us off in 3 minutes. So be aware of that. But
I
yes,
don't know where.
go ahead.
Yeah, just it was a joke, which is hilarious. I was just messing around with the boxers. If you can see how much traffic I got off those two videos I made where I said boxing sucks. It was honestly just a joke. I've been a boxing instructor. I've been a striking instructor many times. I haven't done any of it in a couple years because I've just been primarily focused on my grappling game. Because I really just want to be, in the top, echelon of competitors out there. So, and in order to do that, you essentially got to train twice a day, nonstop. And so it's really hard to manage 2 a day grapplings while also doing striking. You do one striking session and it's hard to walk. So yeah, I've just been focused on grappling, but I got the idea to mess with the boxers from Waterboy with Adam Sandler. It just like I just happened to watch that clip, and I was watching Waterboy, and I was just like, man, this would be funny. So that scene where he's messing with Bobby, he's like, uh, Bobby, water sucks. Gatorade is better. And Bobby Boucher's like, what? He's like, use it on the field.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
that scene. Yeah, that scene always cracked. So that's exactly where I got it from. At the end of it, I was like, boxing sucks, grappling is better. And it did exactly what I thought it would. It made so many people angry. My DMs are filled with people trying to fight me,
I
which is
love
comical.
that.
But
That's so funny, man. People are crazy, dude.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
understand that like you know, it's to create some conversation. It's to create some sort of I don't want to say animosity,
Yeah.
but it's to create some interest. Like I've been doing that too. I've been doing that too. Like one of my things is you know, I think that the gi sucks. No gi is better. Like that's for me kind of the angle that I've been going lately. And okay, in reality, I train with the gi once a week. Like I'm a brown belt in judo. I've trained in the gi a lot. Like the gi is great. I like training in the gi. But if you ask me my opinion and I don't know you, and I'm trying to start like I'm trying to make myself somewhat of an interesting, memorable person, right? If I'm just like, yeah, the gi is okay, totally. And I train it once a week, like no one fucking cares. They want to hear the gi sucks. No gi is better. Like, you know, that's clear. It makes someone say, whoa, we got to talk about this. Like, you know, you're an extremist. So yeah, it's just for fun. You know, it's just for fun.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate you, brother. We'll do this again sometime.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, man.